Well, welcome to Country Boy Gas Garage. My name's Jason, and this video is going to be a little bit different. Normally we're working on classic cars like this 48 bus behind me, but today's video we're going to be working on this 2010 Jeep Wrangler. This belongs to my wife, and we've got some issues that we need to address. Major charging issues. We're going to have to do a bit of rewiring to bypass the computer to get this alternator to start charging again. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go. Yeah, so sorry about the wind and the trees. We're kind of having to tuck under the shade here to make this bearable. We're going to be almost 100 degrees today. And this is my wife's 2010 Jeep Wrangler, and recently it just went dead in the middle of the road. She had to leave it, abandon the road. The battery was completely dead. I went to go jump start it, and it wouldn't even jump start. Battery was at 0. So I threw a new battery in it and drove it home. But once we investigated and started checking things out, the alternator wasn't charging. And that's pretty much usually straightforward. If the alternator's not putting out a charge, you need a new alternator. So I went down to AutoZone, picked up a new alternator, slapped it in there, and it still wasn't charging. You know, it's a lifetime warranty on that alternator, so we just assumed maybe it was defective new out of the box. And so I went down the next day and swapped it out for the third alternator, new out of the box, and we bench tested that one first there at AutoZone, and it bench tested good in the shop. Went out to the parking lot, put the new alternator on, and I tested it and it wasn't charging. So they came out and also tested to verify what I was seeing, and they're saying it's not charging now that it's hooked up to the Jeep, but we just bench charged it inside and it was fine. So we took the alternator that we just removed that was also new, saying it was bad, and bench tested that one. And that one bench tested good. So pretty much new alternators, bench test fine. Once they're installed on the Jeep, they're not good and they won't charge anymore. But if you put them back on the bench test, or they still work. It's just not why they're hooked up to the Jeep. So that left everybody confused and left me searching blogs and forums trying to figure out what's going on here. Why is my alternator not charging? We have new battery, new alternator, and it's just not charging. Like I was saying, it's just not charging. Brand new alternator, new battery. You know, I hook up the multimeter up to the battery and we get a full battery reading, and I'll test that off the alternator here, off the battery post, and it's also testing the battery level, or reading the battery level. But then when I start the Jeep, at that point you would expect this post on the alternator to start putting out maybe 13.5 to 14.5 volts to charge the battery. It's not putting out nothing. All I'm getting is the battery reading from this. And that happens every time we install it on the Jeep. Even though it bench tests fine, when you have it hooked up to the Jeep, it's not putting out a charge. So once I researched it more and read some forums, I figured out that the alternator is turned on and off to charge by the CPU, by the computer. The computer tells the alternator when to start charging. And so in this case, and this is very common, I guess, you know, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge share all of this components, and it's very common for the computer to stop allowing the alternator to charge. And the only way to fix that is to put a new computer in it, and pricing it, that's about $1,000 to $1,200, not even installed and programmed, just the computer itself. I think I found cheaper options out there, but all the reviews are saying they were just no good. Any reputable CPU replacement is going to be about $1,000 to $1,200. More than what we have to put into this thing just to get the battery charging. I've been having to hook up the battery charger to the battery while I park it at night, so that we could actually have a full battery. And I haven't been driving at night, so we don't have to use the lights or any accessories. But we need to get this thing back on the road and charging. And once I started researching my options, I discovered that there's actually a kit you can buy that bypasses the computer. You can get your alternator charging again by installing an external regulator in here and just bypass the CPU when it comes to the alternator charging system. So That was only like 180 bucks, maybe 200 bucks delivered. So that's what we're doing. I bought that kit, quick start external regulator kit. I'll have to drop the link from where I got it. I think it's Alternator Man or alternatorparts.com. But this kit, if we rewire the alternator and modify it with this modified driver and install this external regulator on the firewall, we could bypass the computer and hopefully get this new alternator charging again so we get this Jeep back on the road. So what this kit's going to do is allow us to obviously bypass the regulator that's in the computer, I guess, on these models, and we'll mount this straight to the firewall. We'll be able to install the new wiring harness connecting this all to the battery and ground. This is a ground wire. We do have to install this FRM module between the old wiring. I guess that's supposed to help keep the idiot light off the dash, the indicator saying bad alternator. It's supposed to remove that for you, I guess. And then with this modified driver, we have to actually take the alternator off and remove this back cover, and this clip right here that goes into the back of the alternator and hooks up to the brushes. We're gonna have to remove that and install this newer modified driver in here and connect the old brushes to this and reinstall all of this, and hopefully that'll solve our problem. So I think I got most of the tools laid out here that I'm gonna need. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Let's go. All right, first thing first, we're gonna disconnect the battery. I already had these loose since I was pulling the battery in and out, charging it and what have you. So that's disconnected. And I guess next we should probably find a good spot to mount this external regulator in here. Probably, I think it needs to be mounted to metal for ground, and somewhere that's not going to be too hot, and hopefully somewhere that's not going to be too difficult to install. There's not a whole lot of room available in here. I'm thinking possibly right over there on the firewall, right behind the battery. I don't think that's going to work either. There's just not a whole lot of room. Maybe over there by the CPU. Oh man, there's just no available space. Okay, I think my best bet is to get it right up over here. There's not much space, but we'll be able to squeeze it in right there. The kit supplies everything, all the hardware, nuts and bolts, even all the connectors, butt connectors, zip ties even. Now I will need to run a ground from one of those bolts over to the negative side of the battery. And, well, they supply all of that as well. Now I'm just going to loosely run these wires across the back. We'll be able to tidy that up when we're done. Tie that ground in right there. Now I also need to run an extra external ground wire from the case of the alternator to the negative post of the battery, just to verify that it's grounded. I'm going to plug in this new little wiring harness. It's mainly just 3 wires. 2 go into the external regulator that come back to the alternator once we install the new clip and swap out that modified driver in there with the proper clips. But then this other wire is the one that goes from the external regulator, preferably like a 10 amp fused ignition on switch, probably over there in the fuse panel. But I could already tell this wire it might not be long enough. Let's see. It's got to come all the way across and then into this. I don't want to just come straight across the motor. I'm going to have to add some length to this, which is not preferable, but I guess first we'll find out where we're going to actually tap into. It's suggested at least a 10 amp fused ignition on switch. So, well, I went ahead and hooked the battery back up. I'm going to turn the ignition on and check a couple of these ports. Let's see if I can't find one that's active now. Yeah, that one's working. So that one right there. Yeah, because that's a 30 amp. So that one, where's that one? Okay. All right, I'll tie it into that one. Well, I better double check now that the ignition's off, that one is actually truly off as well. All right, I just need to complete this connection of that one. I just need to purchase an add-a-fuse accessory link to connect into the fuse box, so then I can add that to the ignition on. And we can connect this to that add-a-fuse port for an ignition on source. But to continue on with the install, next we need to connect these two wires from the external regulator to the alternator. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the alternator out because we're going to have to make some modifications there. Alright, now we got to do a little bit of modification to the alternator. You know, I think it's 2006 and up, they have this driver clip set up to the brushes. You know, I'm new to this, but I watched a little video how to do this. We're going to pull this cover off to access this, and we're going to pull out this driver, and we're going to reinstall this modified driver, and we're going to have to swap over the brushes and the whole actuator, the whole mechanism, and connect it to this one and reinstall it. So let's go ahead and do that. Take off the back here. There. And now we need a Phillips so we can remove that. And this one's a torque bit, so I gotta go get the torque bit. Okay. There. So I just felt it release off that shaft there. The brush is released off the shaft. I'll take these two screws out and transfer this over to this one. And we'll just transfer these brushes over to this new modified driver. So we just have to depress these brushes, stick a little pin right in here to hold them in place so we could reattach. Alright, and then we got the 2 sets of brushes in there. We'll just press those in, and then use a pin or drill bit in this case to hold those in place. And we could reinstall them there. There. Now, let's put the back on here. Alright, now we should be able to put this alternator back on. Alright, now these 2 wires coming from the external regulator will get fed through here somewhere, and we'll be able to attach this new clip once again with all the connectors included, which should allow us to connect it right to the back of that alternator. I will run some more loom for these ones. And I'd like to run an extra ground from the alternator to the battery as well, so I'm going to do that before I tighten it. I'll connect it in right there. Next here we need to install this little device, RFM modulator. And this is the old clip that went to the alternator, and I guess you just splice off, you know, that clip and run this in between, you know, connect those 2 wires through this, and that's supposed to tell the system everything's okay and not have the battery indicator light on the dash be on. This is supposed to cure that problem. They said most of the time, not always does this keep that indicator light from being on. But we'll go ahead and install it and see. Alright, I got it all buttoned up for the most part. I need to add a little more loom to that over there. I still have to get that add a circuit fused link to tie in, but temporarily, just to test the system, I did hook up a alligator clip. Now this is just temporary, just so we could test it, because I want to see if this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and start it up, and then we're going to see if the alternator's charging. Well, let's take a quick moment for today's sponsor, Nilight. They sent me these really cool 7-inch LED headlights for the Jeep. They sent me these really cool 7-inch LED headlights for the Jeep. They're really durable design, and they got these cooling fins, and I mean, they just got this really great look. So what I like to do is put them on the Jeep and see what kind of improvement they're going to make. Alright, I'm going to start by removing the grill. We just got some clips that we got to remove here. Pop it on up. Then we could just pull this off. Yeah, we just gotta remove these old headlights, which work pretty good. But you can see they're getting a hazing, and I'm pretty sure these new ones are going to be an improvement on those. And to remove these lights, you'll need a T15. Alright, got those old ones out, and we got to use this ring to install the new one. And the kit does supply the adapter you're going to need too. Make sure I get it oriented right, and we'll put this ring on here and put those T15 screws back. Alright, and then I'll just do the same on this side. Alright, get these out of here. Well, I guess I'll turn them on right quick, just make sure they work. Alright, there's the low beam and high beam. I guess the true test will be at night. Well, let's put that grill back on. Yeah, those look good. Now these lights have turned out to be super bright and work excellent for our Jeep, so huge thanks to Nilight. And let's take a moment to kind of look at some of their catalog. Alright, obviously I'm not going to be able to show you all their items they offer, but you know, just a quick rundown here, just at a glance you could see how much stuff they have to offer. I mean, of course all the lights and light options, but there's also all the accessories and brackets, all kinds of other doodads, roof racks, running boards, some tools. We got interior parts, seat covers, what have you, even performance parts. I mean, there's so much going on, so many items to look at and choose from. Of course, we've been working on the headlights, so we can take a quick look there. LED headlights. And as you can see, there's just so many options. Wow. And well, there's the ones we've got, the 7-inch round LED headlights. There you go. You guys are gonna have to go check out and browse around for yourself and find yourself something. Again, a huge thanks to Nilight. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it up, and then we're gonna see if the alternator's charging. Yeah. They said 14 something. Check the positive. 14.35 to 14.39. It's charging. That worked. Woo! Yes. Alright, it's working. Super excited about that. I just need to finish this last connection, so I need to run to O'Reilly's and get one of those add-a-link fused connections so we could tie in that last connection, and we're done. Alright, it's the next day, and I was able to go to AutoZone and pick up that add-a circuit. It's a fuse tap, we'll be able to tap into that 12-volt ignition on source. So I'll be able to find a fuse in here, you know, using this diagram, that's at least a 10 amp fuse. That's not too highly important if we have any issues, but I'll be able to plug this fuse tap right into that fuse. It'll still be able to utilize that fuse port for its intended use, but also gives us an extra circuit to tap into to run that last 12-volt supply to the external regulator. All right, well, I actually found an unused port here, and it's labeled as a 20 amp port for something I can't really understand, but it's not being utilized. It's a 20 amp port, which should be sufficient, and it's an ignition on source, so we'll be able to utilize that, and I'll make that last connection. Now, something I wanted to point out really quick before I continue was, well, this is that 12-volt lead that goes over to the external regulator, and it's supposed to be an ignition on. Well, last night when I finished up here, I accidentally left the battery connected, which I didn't want to do, but I left it connected, and this wire was laying right here on the 12-volt lug of this fuse panel. So it was getting 12 volts all night long when it's only supposed to be on during ignition on. I went over and felt the external regulator box, and it's hot. I also felt the alternator, and the alternator's hot. And I checked the battery, and it's half drained. So I'm really upset with myself for doing that. Hopefully I didn't burn anything up or cause any issues. I'm going to finish making this connection, and hopefully there's enough juice left in the battery to start it, and that we'll be able to see if it's going to charge it or not, or if I just burned up the whole thing. All right, let's give this thing a start, and hopefully everything's working. All right, 14.3 volts. It's charging. Well, it's all working good. I went and got a new battery for the Jeep because the other one was shot. I was borrowing the one out of the Nova, but brand new battery, brand new alternator, and now brand new external regulator kit. Everything's working great. Huge thanks to Nilight for sponsoring the video with those 7-inch LED headlights for the Jeep. And of course, huge thanks to all my viewers and subscribers, and of course, all my members. You know, with your membership and anybody else's financial help to the channel is the only way I can do this. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. And well, before I turn the Jeep back over to my wife, there's one more thing I need to do. Let's go give this thing a wash. Now, usually I wash a vehicle myself, but there's this new fancy dancy automated car wash up here. Scooter's car wash? I don't know. We're gonna give it a try. Let's go.